Hey, good morning. It's Patricia Murphy. It's Wednesday. This is Seattle Now. The clock is ticking for thousands of state workers facing Governor Inslee's order to get vaccinated. But now almost 100 have signed on to a lawsuit to avoid the jab and keep their jobs. KUOW's Olympia correspondent Austin Jenkins will fill us in a minute. But first, let's get you caught up. The clouds are back, and here comes the rain. Today's showers will be just a warm-up, according to the National Weather Service. We'll likely get our first real drenching of the season this weekend. Seattle could get up to 1.5 inches of rain between Friday and Sunday. And love the rain or not, that is good news, because in the past 90 days, we've had just a fraction of that. Whale watchers will have to keep their distance from the J-pod orcas for a while. Some of them appear to be pregnant, with one looking pretty close to giving birth. Researchers caught on by comparing overhead drone photos of J-pod taken a few months apart. The southern resident orcas are still a critically endangered species, so every birth counts. And the Seattle Mariners won't say why Ken Griffey Jr. and Edgar Martinez have Space Needle flag-raising duty this afternoon, but word is that it's to announce the M's will host an upcoming All-Star game at T-Mobile Park. ESPN says their sources say Seattle is the pick for 2023. The last time the M's hosted was back in 2001, which is also the last time the team made the playoffs. Still working on that second part. Governor Inslee is facing pushback to his order that most state employees be vaccinated by next month or get fired. Now, thousands of state employees have filed for medical or religious exemptions, and more than 90 state troopers, corrections officers, and ferry workers are suing. KUOW's Olympia correspondent Austin Jenkins talked with one couple involved in the suit who say they won't get vaccinated and shouldn't lose their jobs over it. Austin, good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you.
So remind us where we are with Governor Inslee's mandate that all state workers get vaccinated.
Well, he announced this last month, and he did it sort of in stages. Remember, it was cabinet-level state employees and healthcare workers and long-term care workers, and then he expanded it to include workers in the education field, so preschool all the way through higher education. And he set this really hard and firm deadline of October 18th to be fully vaccinated. That means getting your last dose if you're getting the J&J, the single shot, by October 4th, assuming it takes a couple of weeks to get fully vaccinated. So, this is a universe of like 60,000 people just in state government that are potentially affected by this. Of course, some are already vaccinated. And what was really interesting and what made this mandate really stand out nationally is how stringent it is. There is no testing alternative that the governor is offering. It's get vaccinated or get out.
Austin, many of those state employees didn't need this directive from the governor. They have gotten vaccinated, but not everyone. And there are holdouts, and now there's a lawsuit. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, this is a lawsuit that was filed last week in Walla Walla County. And I don't know that I've ever seen a lawsuit with as many named plaintiffs. We're talking 90 plus. And the lawyer says in the lawsuit that he plans to add thousands more, if not tens of thousands more. But to begin with, it is a group of state troopers, state correctional officers, ferry workers, city firefighters from Seattle to Spokane. I saw a University of Washington medicine employee named. These are people who are saying that this mandate is against the law and is unconstitutional, violates their rights, that the penalty of losing your job if you don't get vaccinated is unnecessary, and that really the governor should be offering a testing option at least. It is believed to be the first lawsuit that is actually trying to fully repeal the governor's mandate. Previously, one of the unions, the largest state employee union, sued to try to put things on hold while they bargained the details of enacting this mandate. But this lawsuit wants to stop it in its tracks.
And you met two of the people, Austin, who are suing to overturn Inslee's mandate and save their jobs, Selena and Richard Thompson. Who are they?
So they're a married couple. They live in the Vancouver, Washington area, and they both work for the State Patrol. Richard is a sergeant with about 17 years on the patrol, about 20 years total in law enforcement. Selena is a dispatcher. She started, I think, right out of school, 19, 20 years old as a dispatcher, and she's been there 15 years. They are both named plaintiffs in this lawsuit. And here's what Selena told me about why she signed on to this, why she's challenging the governor.
For me, it's about moral conviction, I guess. And there's a right and the wrong. And for me, this is wrong. Having it mandated is wrong. I think it should be our choice whether to get vaccinated or not. And that's where I'm at with it. I've never had a vaccine as an adult, and I didn't never plan to get one. I feel like I do my part. I mask up, I social distance, I get my groceries to go. I do little things to help do my part in not spreading it because I know that's important.
That's the point at which I said, sounds like my household. You can hear Selena had to get up and help out one of their young children. The Thompsons have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. Here's her husband, Richard.
For me, I've spent most of my adult life protecting the rights and liberties of other people. And I feel like for us, it's time to try to protect our own. At some point, I feel it's morally apprehensible for him to take people's livelihoods and jobs away and ability, especially when you're talking about a lot of state employees, not just state patrol, but a lot of state employees are there to serve other people for critical functions. I'm not anti-vaccination. I completely respect anybody's choice to get it, their choice to get it.
Austin, the governor's allowing for medical and religious exemptions. And yesterday we heard about how many of those state workers are seeking one of those exemptions, about 4,800 people so far.
Yeah, it could be, 8% at this point, and maybe that number will climb to 10% or better. Again, some agencies in particular are seeing more interest in these exemptions than others. What we know is that this is probably a small but very vocal group, minority of workers who feel really strongly and feel really passionately. And it was interesting talking to the Thompsons. They actually applied for and received religious exemptions. But then they found out that their agency, the State Patrol, can't accommodate that exemption. And so therefore they still face termination. And I think that's the storyline that's probably going to play out in the next few weeks, is getting the exemption may be something of a hurdle, but even if you get one, it's no guarantee. And my hunch is, especially based on the preliminary numbers, is that in the end, a small percentage of the people who get the exemptions will actually get an accommodation that will allow them to continue to work unvaccinated in a state agency.
Austin, the lawsuit argues that the governor's mandate is unconstitutional, but the governor's office says this is all by the book. They're doing what they have to do to save lives. What do you expect to hear from legal arguments?
Well, the state will file a response to this lawsuit. That may take a few days. Generally, it's safe to say that courts have sided with employers when it comes to vaccine mandates. It's interesting that the lawsuit is state employees challenging this. For the most part, there may be at least one private healthcare worker in there, but this is generally state employees. It would be an interesting argument to know how is it that the governor can order private employees at private healthcare facilities and hospitals to get vaccinated and enforce that. But that's not what's being challenged in this particular lawsuit. We're going to have to see if this lawsuit has some juice, if there's a judge that gets this and says, I'm going to do an injunction and put a halt to this while we sort this out, or this is concurrent to the vaccine mandate going along. But at this point, the governor's office feels very confident, and it says that it has the law on its side. We shall see.
Yeah. Why is it regular testing an option for people who don't want to get the vaccine? You can do this if you want to go to see a Seahawks game. You can test negative and still get in.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think there's a difference of opinion about this. I talked to the state acting health officer, Dr. Scott Lindquist, about this, and he thinks a testing option is reasonable. But the governor has been very firm on this. He doesn't think that it's safe. He doesn't think it's effective, especially because the vaccines are available. He does not seem to be wavering on this point. One question that a state employee who doesn't want to get vaccinated raised to me at a rally this week opposing the governor's mandate it was just a question. Will the way that they start to accommodate workers who get an exemption, will one way of accommodating them be to allow them to get tested? We haven't seen that yet, but it's an interesting question she raised. And that might be a way for the governor to not back down, but for state employees to still get that option. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but the question's being asked.
Yeah, it would certainly be one way for the governor and state employees to come to the table and get somewhere with and save face at the same time. You know, the Thompsons have a lot riding on this outcome. What did they say they'll do if the case doesn't go their way?
Yeah, it was interesting because Selena said that somebody had said to her, "Is this the hill you really want to die on?" And she said, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, I feel that strongly that I'm willing to walk away from a job I really like."
For me, I will get fired. I won't get the shot, but I know a lot of people that might get the Johnson & Johnson shot, and there's no judgment there because I mean, it's been so stressful trying to find other jobs and places to live that are cheaper and moving our kids away from our family. And it's a lot, and we make good money and we like what we do. So I get it. But for me personally, I won't be getting the shot. And so I will be fired, and I will be looking for other places of employment.
And what Richard said is that he's been working the front line as a state trooper with a mask, social distancing for going on 2 years now, and that he doesn't understand why that's now not acceptable. He says it just doesn't make sense to him. You know, they told me that they are taking this pandemic seriously, that they are practicing social distancing and masking. They don't think it's not real. They're not, big time anti-vaxxers, but they just feel like this mandate goes too far. And they have a saying in their family that they think applies to this situation.
Our family motto is "you do you." And I think like we've said that a lot, you do you and I'll do me.
Yeah,
but rest assured, we are not out there, trying to spread COVID. We're still doing our part. I mean, we're still masking up and we're still social distancing, and we're not, throwing parties. And
we just had an antibody test done today, and we don't have antibodies, which means we've done our part to not contract COVID and not spread COVID because we haven't had it. Yeah.
You do you.
Yeah, I'll do me.
Austin, what happens now?
So I think the big question is, as this vaccine mandate plays out, how many people get exemptions, how many people are accommodated, and how many people end up losing their jobs? And does that impact the function of state government? Can they staff the prisons? Can they staff the state psychiatric hospitals? Will there be a big attrition of troopers, and already the state patrol is understaffed? Will the plows still be plowing I-90 this winter? Or will it just be a small group of people who refuse to get vaccinated and leave, and it doesn't affect the operations of state government? That's what I'm watching and waiting for.
KUOW's Olympia correspondent Austin Jenkins, we will follow your reporting. Thanks for making time to talk to us.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening. Jason Pagano produced today's show. Our production team is Caroline Chamberlain Gomez, Clare McGrane, Diana Opong, and Jenny Cecil Moore. Matt Jorgensen does our theme music. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you tomorrow.